right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are taking a deep dive into a regional threat assessment of the terrifying reality that is the Deadlands. If you follow the Grim Shadows universe, you already know that survival in this cursed wasteland is, well, anything but guaranteed. But today, we're really going to break down exactly what makes this unconquered region so incredibly dangerous. It's essentially a permanent, looming threat to every single neighboring kingdom. We're going to look at the hostile environment, the totally horrific rules of life and death, and the monstrous powers that govern the whole shebang.
To do that, here is our agenda. We'll start with a welcome to the Deadlands, then cover the native birth curse, look at the undead overlords and cults, dive into the hex hunters and witchblood, and wrap up with the endless strategic standstill.
So let's get into Section 1, Welcome to the Deadlands, and what we call the geographic trap.
Okay, picture this. The Deadlands are situated east of the Grey Hills and north of Arcust, right on the border of the Wood Elven Kingdom of Everwood. It is a region so inherently bleak, so completely hostile, that the Enders of Mistfall avoid it entirely. Imagine standing in what technically passes for daytime here. The sun is up, sure, but it never shines at full strength. You're constantly enveloped in this thick, oppressive mist that just swallows up ancient ruins and broken roads. And the magic? Well, nature and life magic are severely weakened, while death magic is massively amplified. Plus, there is this constant, distant howling of wolves. But because of that endless fog and the warped magic of the land, you never truly know if they're just normal animals, werewolves, or the servants of some unseen undead power tracking you.
That brings us to Section 2, the native birth curse, a prison of wasting. Because the environment isn't bad enough, right? If you are unlucky enough to be born here as an innocent mortal, you are trapped. Literally. If you try to flee this nightmare without explicit permission from a Death Lord or their authorized agent, there's no physical border guard that stops you. Instead, a magical wasting takes hold. The second you cross that border to safety, your life force just rapidly starts draining away. Within one single week, your body fails and you die. It doesn't matter how fast or how far you run or which neighboring kingdom you reach, distance offers absolutely zero protection.
But check out this bizarre, crazy contrast. While native innocents are magically trapped, basically held hostage by this need for permission, foreigners are a totally different story. Mercenaries, dwarven caravans, treasure hunters, they can freely enter and exit. They are completely immune to the birth curse. But, and this is a massive but, they are entirely vulnerable to the physical reality of the Deadlands. Sure, they might not waste away magically, but they are incredibly likely to be violently ripped apart by monsters or cults long before they ever reach a border with their pockets full of ancient treasure or silver.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, Undead Overlords and Cults, the Predators.
So there is absolutely zero central unified government in the Deadlands. Instead, it's just this chaotic web of predators, carved up into provinces ruled by completely different horrors. It's like a nightmarish jigsaw puzzle. You've got vampires who deliberately preserve entire villages just to farm a steady feeding population. You've got death knights barking commands from ancient ruined fortresses, and werewolves that literally hunt the town streets every single night. Plus your unpredictable roaming specters and banshees. But what's really fascinating here is their behavior. They exhibit this mysterious, chilling territorial restraint. A werewolf might be hunting just 2 towns over from a vampire lord, yet they almost never go to open war with one another. They stay in their lanes. It maximizes their ability to hunt the living without destroying each other. But wait, who is actually pulling the strings? Operating way above these local, provincial horrors are the Death Lords. And here's the twist. They don't even live in the Deadlands. They reside in the Dead Realms. Deathlord Locke is one of the most infamous confirmed powers making moves here. Because they are trapped in another realm, they manipulate the Deadlands using death cults. And this is absolutely crucial. They use living cultists as their emissaries. Why? Because living agents aren't undead, which means they can actually leave the Deadlands on foreign missions. This is exactly how the Deathlords manage to sneak their dark influence right into neighboring kingdoms. All right, let's hit Section 4, Hex Hunters and Witchblood, the desperate defenses. With literal monsters everywhere and escape totally impossible for natives, how do mortal humans actually survive? Well, they hide behind walled, silver-fortified towns, they set up constant night watches, they import highly valuable silver from the dwarven caravans, and they rely heavily on a very specialized guild known as the Hex Hunters. But the Hex Hunters harbor a really dark secret. Yes, they slaughter monsters for bounties, but mostly, they need the bodies. They harvest those monster remains to brew a potent super steroid drug called witch blood. This crazy concoction gives them supernatural speed, strength, rapid healing, and night vision. It basically levels the playing field against the undead. The catch? It is unbelievably addictive to every single member of the guild.
And here is why that addiction matters so much. It creates this horrifying phenomenon known as the red curtain. If a hunter is deprived of witch blood, their judgment completely and totally dissolves into a violent, unstable withdrawal. We're talking a murderous rage triggered by the absolute slightest irritation or delay, and it only ends when they violently kill someone, anyone. It doesn't have to be a monster or a criminal, it could literally be a fellow traveler, or even the mayor who just hired them. Talk about a double-edged sword, right? It turns these so-called protectors into indiscriminate, recurring threats to the very towns they are supposed to be defending.
Finally, let's zoom out for Section 5, the endless strategic standstill, the global stakes.
Now you might be wondering, why hasn't a major world power just marched a massive army in and wiped this place out? Well, they've tried, and they failed miserably. The dreaming empire of Dor has actually launched multiple crusades to purge the Deadlands, but thanks to the hostile terrain, that magical blinding fog, and the literal endless waves of undead and cult attacks, almost all of their efforts have completely collapsed. Today, Dor manages to cling to just two doomed, isolated outposts, Dawn's Hope and Light's Edge. They can win the occasional battle for sure, but they simply cannot conquer the region.
And here is where the global threat really escalates. We need to talk about the Great Dead Host. Remember that territorial restraint we talked about earlier? Well, occasionally, a Death Lord in the Dead Realms decides to just flip the switch. They unite all these fractured, independent provincial horrors, the vampires, the liches, the Death Knights, into a single, coordinated Great Dead Host. Suddenly, all those isolated local dangers transform into a massive, organized army that surges outward, violently threatening every single border, from Everwood all the way to Arkest. Which brings us to the ultimate question. Given Dor's repeated, devastating failures, can the Deadlands ever actually be subdued? Or is this region explicitly designed to be an eternal, unconquerable stronghold? There's this persistent in-world belief from the Chronicles of Cain that the witch who originally cursed Cain came directly from the Deadlands. While it's still unproven history, when you look at the sheer, unyielding terror of this region, you really have to wonder, what dark secrets are these undead overlords actually guarding? It's a fantastic piece of lore that leaves us questioning the true, hidden purpose of this entire cursed land. What do you think?